Greetings. Today is 11/25/2019, and I'm doing this video as a build-up for the information that I found concerning the timing of the first rapture. I have to lay the foundation to help with the understanding. Now, I'm not really ready to do this video. I'm kind of just throwing it out there because I told you all that I would have at least one of the videos out prior to Thanksgiving, and I know the rest of my week is going to be extremely busy, so this is the only time I had to do it. So I'm just kind of winging it. So it's a rough draft, but it will at least get us on the same page as to understanding where we are and why we are so amiss. Now, the last video I did, I was talking about how space is basically one big gigantic clock. All the stars and the planets and the way they move is like clock gears. And it's so important to the Almighty that He's the one that named the stars. He allowed Adam to name the animals and the things on earth, but He named the stars. And originally, the stars and their meanings and the constellations and their meanings, it was all about the story of the Messiah. People refer to it as the gospel and the stars. And that's why I say the people who call themselves Christians, and if you start talking about stars and celestial events and stuff like that, and they start getting all, tangled together, crying about astrology and blah blah blah, they don't have a clue of what's going on with what the Messiah is telling us in His Word, because He flat out tells us that He put the stars there for signs and for seasons, etc., etc. And like I said, originally the Mazzaroth and the stars and their names, it was all telling us a story. And the ancients knew this. Basically, from Adam, probably until some time after Noah. Somewhere shortly after Noah is when it started getting lost. But they knew about it. And from what I gather, there's basically three main acts. And the 12 constellations are divided into three acts, with four of the constellations being part of that play. Alright? And I'm saying this because, like I said, space is basically one big, gigantic clock. And in this video, my goal is to get across that time is important, and how we tell time is important and measure it, because that's all really a clock does is measuring time. But in this video, I'm going to explain how we have completely lost our way of telling time. It got lost a little bit after Noah. Then it got lost again a little bit after Moses. Because what the Almighty was doing with Moses and the ancient Israelites, and the reason why they had to spend 40 days in the wilderness, is because they had to learn, which is basically relearning as a culture, because Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they all had this. But once they assimilated into Egypt after Joseph, for them 400 years, they completely lost all knowledge of things holy from the Almighty, YaHushuWaH. So the Almighty had to reteach them. And one of the things that was retaught was the holy days. Okay? So I was just searching out some images about clock gears, and I came across this one and this one, because it's like, if you can imagine this in space, and like these are all different stars and planets and constellations turning and twisting all together, and they're measuring time. Like I said, like there's certain things that happen, every month, every year, and they're like the faster hands that twist on a clock. But then there's certain things that only happen every once in a while, like, full eclipses, total eclipses, I should say, not full, total eclipses. They only happen every so often, and that would be like the hands on a clock that turn a little bit slower. And then there's major celestial events that only happen every once in a while, and that's like, when it switches from one day to another, or from morning to afternoon. And an example of an extremely rare celestial event was the Revelation 12:1 sign that occurred on the fall equinox of 2017, 9/23/2017. Now that was such a rare and unique event. That was actually a whole age flipping. That's how massive that sign was. Critical to understand how important that sign was, because it's like I said in past videos, it was more unique than the Star of Bethlehem for the birth of the Messiah. That was just a conjunction, which, they're rare and but look at only a few wise men from the east seen it and understood what was going on. All of the Israelites and everybody else didn't see it and understand it. And even if they did understand it, they weren't recorded in history because they didn't put everything down to make the journey. It was only the wise men from the east who seen it and went to worship the king, the one who is born king. They knew he was born king. So the Almighty emphasizes a couple things in Enoch and Jubilees. He tells us that him and the angels observed the Sabbath prior to revealing it to humans. And he also tells us that the Feast of Weeks has a double nature. It's for the covenant and first fruits. Most of the covenants that occurred throughout Scripture between the Almighty and man take place on the Feast of Weeks. Some examples are when Noah made atonement for the earth after it was purified by the flood. Abraham, Jacob, Moses, and then the new covenant on Pentecost. These all occurred on what we would call the Feast of Pentecost in modern day. And then the Almighty prophesied that Israel would disturb the way to tell time, thus all humanity, because ancient Israel were his people, so they were the ones with the knowledge of the Creator, and the Creator's the one who made time, thus he's telling us how to measure it. But then he prophesied that we would disturb it, and that we would be observing holy days on unclean days, and on unclean days would be our holy days. So Jubilees 6:47 to 59 is the prophecy when the Almighty tells us that even though he gives us the commands to Noah after everything was renewed, he told us that we would lose it and get out of sync with the heavenly tablets in New Jerusalem, and earth, humanity, and New Jerusalem would be out of sync. Okay? So, right here. And command thou the children of Israel that they observe the years according to this reckoning, 364 days. And these will constitute a complete year, and they will not disturb its time from its days and from its feasts. For everything will fall out in them according to their testimony, and they will not leave out any day nor disturb any feasts. But if they do neglect and do not observe them according to his commandment, then they will disturb all their seasons, and the years will be dislodged from the order. Okay? And they will disturb the seasons and years, will be dislodged, and they will neglect their ordinances. And all the children of Israel will forget, and will not find the path of the years, and will forget the new moons and seasons and Sabbaths, and they will go wrong as to all the order of the year. For I know, and from henceforth shall I declare it unto thee, and it is not of my own devising. For the book written before me, and on the heavenly tables of the division of days, is ordained, lest they forget the feast of the covenant, and walk according to the feast of the Gentiles, after their error and after their ignorance. Okay, so this gives us a little clue of how it gets lost. They start following others. For there will be those who will assuredly make observations of the moon. Now it disturbeth the seasons, and cometh in from year to year 10 days too soon. For this reason the years will come upon them, when they will disturb the order, and make an abominable day the day of testimony, and an unclean day a feast day. This is where we are right now. And they will confound all the days, the holy with the unclean, and the unclean with the holy, for they will go wrong as to the months, and Sabbaths, and feasts, and Jubilees. For this reason I command and testify to thee, that thou mayest testify to them. For after thy death thy children will disturb the time, so that they will not make the year 364 days only. And for this reason they will go wrong as to the new moons and seasons and Sabbaths and festivals, and they will eat all kinds of blood with all kinds of flesh. Okay, so there's the prophecy that basically after Moses, the Israelites were going to mess it all up. And it's obvious when you look back at history that they did. And it's obvious, and it's extremely obvious today with the multitude of calendars and interpretations. And it's burdensome, to say the least. It's burdensome when you're trying to get in sync with New Jerusalem and to find the truth, because there's so much garbage out there saying one thing and another. So this disturbing of time is apparent in our present day by the fact that there is a multitude of calendars and a multitude of interpretations of specific calendars. So from my study, I've concluded that the mathematical calendar revealed in Enoch and in Dead Sea Scrolls is correct. But the majority, if not all, the people using this calendar have it wrong. Thus, all humanity has it wrong. And that's pretty much what I'm trying to say in this video. Is that I personally think it's probably safe to say that no one on planet Earth has time correct. And if there are a few out there, we're talking less than, 0.00001%. Because even, some of the pioneers of the restoration ministry movement of the, Hebraic root movement that have been doing this for 30, 40, 50 years, even they don't have it right. And I can show you why. The error that the Enoch Zadokite enthusiasts have is not reckoning Enoch to Noah. So it's like the people who are in the restoration movement, using the Dead Sea Scrolls and Enoch, their mistake is that the Almighty gave more instructions after Enoch. He gave instructions to Noah, and then he gave instructions to Moses. And what the Enochians, the Zadokites, have failed to do is they have failed to reckon all that together. They're just going by what was given to Enoch. And that's not correct, to put it simple. So the first transition would be the instructions in Jubilees, which are called the Days of Remembrance, in honor of Noah. Okay? And that's in Jubilee 6. And as far as I can tell, I have not seen any websites or channels that teach this incorporation of how to tell time. Okay? So where the complication lies is in what does the ancient Hebrew actually say. Alright? Because the majority of English translations and the Enochians and Zadokites insist that Leviticus 23:24 means the first of the month, and assume trumpets is on the first day of the 7th month. But I have since concluded that this understanding is not correct via reckoning Jubilees, Enoch, and Genesis. Alright, so the Days of Remembrance. In Jubilees, the Almighty has the angels write down in the heavenly tablets the days of remembrance in honor of Noah. Okay? So there's the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th month. Alright? The new moon of the 1st month is to remember when Noah was commanded to build the ark, and then a year later he entered it. And a year after that, well, this isn't actually accurate. It's 13 months later he entered it. And a year after that, on the new moon of the 1st month, he opened the ark and saw the land. Alright, so judgment begins, Noah's saved, and then comes the new covenant. Alright, actually new beginnings. Alright, the new covenant is actually an extra one. which is the Feast of Weeks. Like I said, this is a rough draft. I didn't get to everything. Okay. So then we see the new moon of the 4th month is to remember when the abyss was closed. So when Noah entered the ark on the 17th day of the 2nd month, the rains began and the abysses were open. I believe Jubilees says there was 7 great abysses that opened, and water poured out from the earth, from the bottom, and then it was also raining down. And 40 days and 40 nights it rained, and for I guess about 60 days the abysses were releasing water from underneath, groundwater. But then in the 4th month, on the new moon of that month, the abysses closed, which I believe represents judgment was finished. Then on the new moon of the 7th month, the abysses opened for the water to descend into them. And I believe that this represents restoration. And then the final one is the new moon of the 10th month. It's when the tops top of the mountains were seen. The new beginnings, right? Or new hope. And then after this would be the new moon of the 1st month, is when the what happened on the that's when he opened the ark. Okay. Then we have the new moon of the 3rd month, is when he made atonement for the earth. Okay, so that's the days of Noah in a nutshell. But really, the days of remembrance are these main ones right here, which is the 1st month, 4th month, 7th month, and 10th month. Okay? Now, the key to unlocking this puzzle is connecting Genesis to Jubilees. Okay? The English translations say 1st of the month, but Jubilees declares it is the new moon of the month. So this one translation determines whether we are in sync with New Jerusalem or not. So if we have the start of the new year correct via Enoch, then we know about the 52 weeks and the 364 days. So now the main thing left is connecting Enoch, Jubilees, and Genesis. Alright? And I believe the concluding factor as to what the translation should be is in the second half of the verse concerning trumpets. Because trumpets, in the English translations, it says that it's on the first day of the 7th month. Okay? But then the second half of the verse, it says that it's a reminder or a memorial by blowing of the trumpets. And I believe this term, reminder, memorial, is hearkening back to Jubilees, the days of Noah, the days of remembrance. Meaning, it isn't the first day of the 7th month. It's the new moon of the 7th month. Okay? Now, right here in Genesis 8:13, it says, and it came to pass, all right, in the first month, on the first day of the month, all right, that's the translations. Even the interlinear Bible's saying this, first day. The English translations say it, first day. All right? And now look. The first. Okay, of the month, it has its own separate term right here, of the month. So in the first of the month. So this term right here means first. Okay? Chief, right? Now this term should be the same thing. If this is the first month, well then this is the first day, and this is the Hebrew word for first, chief. But you'll see when you click on 259, there's a whole host of translations for this one word. And that's where the confusion is, right there, this one word, 259. Because pretty much all the translations I've seen render it the first day. But I'll show you that it is not the first day. Why? Because of this right here. In the 7th month, on the first day, it is the same word, 259. Okay? And now, here's where we can connect it to prove that that word should not be translated as first day, that it should be translated as new moon or 10th day. Now that's where the struggle should be. Does it mean new moon or 10th day? Not first day. Okay? So, right here in Genesis 7, it says for 7 more days, okay? And then after the 7th days, we see that it's the 17th day of the 2nd month. And then when we go to Jubilees 38, on the new moon, was that at? What? Okay, so here we go. This is where I had it saved. Alright. And he commanded Noah to make him an ark that he might save himself from the waters of flood. And Noah made an ark, all respects commanded 21st. Alright. In the 5th week in the 5th year, on the new moon of the 1st month. And he entered in the 6th year. This is now it transitions and talks about when he entered the ark. And he entered in the 6th year, in the 2nd month, on the new moon of the 2nd month. Bingo. Bingy. Bingo. Right there. So, the new moon of the 2nd month is the 10th day of the month, not the 1st. Meaning, more than likely, when the translations say the 1st day of the month, it's talking about the 10th day or the new moon, or they are synonymous. Alright, so that's how it is reckoned. That's how it's adjusted. Because right here, basically, the seasonal markers in Enoch, in the 1st, 4th, or excuse me, the the 1st, 4th, well, the seasonal markers in Enoch for spring, summer, fall, winter are basically the days of remembrance in honor of Noah. But then what happens is that knowledge gets lost in Egypt when they assimilated into Egypt. So then the Almighty transitioned to reteach that knowledge in a new way for them to understand, and he adjusts it to commemorate the Exodus. Alright? And then he gives us and this is I'll have this worked out for the next video, but basically, so like when Noah got the command to build the ark, it was on the 10th day of the 1st month. Well, in the Exodus, the 10th day of the 1st month is when they choose the Passover lamb. Okay? And then we have Passover. And then the Feast of Weeks was when Noah, on the new moon of the 3rd month, when Noah made atonement for the earth, which is the Feast of Weeks. That was the Feast of Weeks, okay? Then we have the 7th month, the new moon of the 7th month, which is trumpets, atonement, and unleavened bread. And then we have the new moon of the 10th month, which is the Feast of Dedication, Hanukkah. Now, the new moon of the 4th month, I gotta figure that one out yet. But anyway, like I said, this is a rough draft just to get us all on the same page, understanding that basically all of humanity is not in sync with New Jerusalem. And why this is bad is because this is the best way I can liken it, all right? The Almighty tells us that when we're in sync with New Jerusalem, it's the same principle as a cell phone having full bars, okay? Like, the regular days of the week, we'll have, 1 bar, a couple bars. But on the Sabbath, we have full bars to receive from the Almighty. All right? Same thing with the holy days and the feast days. And then when we're continually locked in, observing the Sabbath, doing the feast days, obeying the commandments, that's like the Almighty gives us a full, amplified boost of reception. His signal is always going out the same. However, it depends on us on whether we have full bars or no bars. And that's why it's so critical about observing the Sabbath, obeying the commandments, and the feast days, the holy days. It's not for him. He's the same. You know what I mean? He's the Almighty, the creator, the author, the finisher, the one who was, Yah, the one who is, Hu, the one who always will be, Wah. So, this is for us. When we are in sync with him, when we're in tune with him, that's how we get the reception. All right? And like I said, next video, I totally encourage you all to check back. I'm going to take my time on it because it is, once you hear the knowledge that I have to share, I think the light bulb will go on for everybody that is seasoned into studying the scripture. Of course, for people who are, new believers or even, only have a couple years in or whatever, it'll be very hard to understand. But for you all who are seasoned, alert, paying attention, watching, studying, obeying the commandments, etc., etc., you guys, I know the light bulb's going to go on. And I want to really do a good video. Not just a rough draft, but really hit the points home. Because it's critical, and the time's winding down. And then after that video, I'll probably do another video rehashing the timeline with a narrative. And then I'm just going to encourage everybody to, march forward, press on, and we'll see what happens. But like I said, once you guys hear the new information, and this video might even, you guys are really, if some of you are really in tune, the light bulb may have already went on, but I got a couple different, because as you all know, the Almighty uses patterns and rehearsals and etc., etc. Well, I found the rehearsals that match up and confirm each other as to the timing. And next video, by the grace of the wonderful, most beautiful, and merciful Almighty, we'll share it and take it from there. Alright, until then, hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is basically my favorite secular holiday. But wish you all the best. And until the next time, may the will of YaHushuWaH be done in the name that is above all names, His only begotten Son, YaHushuWaH. Take care.